swear that they're changing my voice. So this is Dionysus Part 9. We're continuing from the 40-minute to 1 hour mark. And I left off describing the characteristics of Dionysus versus Apollo. Okay. And keep in mind that there's a bunch of deities that we talk about, right? We're eventually going to get into Odin and so on and so forth. And the deities aren't one-to-one, right? Dionysus isn't the same exactly as Apollo or Odin or Osiris, okay? They use a kind of jigsaw puzzle or riddle formula. For example, Apollo is said to be part of Dionysus, okay? Where he's the good part and Dionysus the evil, something to this effect. And Odin has characteristics of Dionysus and characteristics of other deities in Greco-Roman mythology. To make a long story short, Pan means all for all the Greco-Roman deities, and it's a riddle, right? Tarot cards, riddles, puzzles, jigsaw, what have you. They're all different aspects of the devil. Sometimes the devil comes to you in the form of, Pan, so to speak, in the form of Osiris, in the form of a rocker, in the form of a rapper, right? But they're all in the spirit of the devil. And they have core characteristics. And when we get into part 10, we're going to talk about the wordplay with the frenzy and the poetry and mind and song and singing and rage and madness and how it all comes together in the Norse mythology in one of the more pronounced points to really help you understand the characteristics of the devil. The Greek deities, at least at first glance, appear to be more kind of laid back than the Norse deities, okay, and the Norse culture. But it's not quite the case. The Romans were ruthless. They raped people. They went into a frenzy. Okay, they abused their slaves. There's a lot of parallels. But that's a key part of this, okay? So there's a certain motive behind the mysteries, the global mysteries. There's a certain formula, a model, and an expected output. So Dionysus connects to Nin Gushizida, as I went over in the last video, right? Vegetation, underworld, war, snakes, libations, wine, okay? And Nin Gushizida is a deity that probably predates Dionysus by a good bit. So the deities basically start in Africa, as far as anyone knows, and it starts with the story of Horus versus Set. Over time, Set and the Setians, who went around the world, gather attractive females from various places, from Persia, from Ethiopia, from Greece, and they kind of mix them together into a cult. And they're looking for those Isis traits, right? Dios and Isis, right? And Diana and Isis, Dionysus. And we also have the wordplay with the god of the tree, Dios and Nusa, okay? And Nusa is like Musa, and I believe that is an Arabic word meaning Moses. So there's all kinds of connections, right? The Bible is a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, look at Revelation, and so are the Greco-Roman mysteries. If you have any questions about that, put in the comments. So we see that Saturn is a deity that is said to annihilate individuality. Saturn is a play on words for our Satan. And Saturn and Dionysus are said to be in the same spirit. Okay, and that is key there. Just like Pan and Zeus, they're all in the same spirit. They're all forms of the devil. Zeus is said to change forms, and he's said to be the god of the main deity of the Greco-Roman system. Zeus is the devil, and his name is a play on words for Suez, for the Suez Canal, which goes back to Egypt, and the Ear Canal, and who listens to who, which goes back to Eri and his ear eye. As the Greco-Roman types listen to the truth about God, it sends them into a frenzy. We'll get into that in the next video. And they're said to communicate with the demons in that frenzy. And they sing songs, and they think a certain way. And so the words we're going to connect there, the word woe, and we're going to connect that to Yah and the Greek, the way the Greeks write Yah, on a piece of paper or something, right? The way the Greeks write Yah is similar to the way that Dionysus is written. We'll get to that in the next video. So, as we look at this thing, right, we see that Orpheus is said to be the son of Apollo, and he's the high priest of Dionysus. And that connects to a lot of interesting things where we have Laoson, who is said to mate with Semele instead of Zeus in some versions, and Zeus strikes him down with a thunderbolt out of jealousy. Okay. So the gods are also said to be pre-Greek. And it is never clear exactly how many of the Samothracian, for example, great gods there were. It was forbidden to learn their names. Okay, so there's a lot of kind of insignificant facts in this part. I'm not a big fan of this part, but some of this stuff is important. For example, when Demeter, okay, in some versions Semele and Laoson, in some versions it's Demeter and Laoson, becomes enamored with Laoson. He's presented with the fruit of the corn. Hermes gave a lyre, Athena the renowned necklace and a robe and a flute, and Electra the sacred rites of the great mother of the gods. That's why I brought up this part for the rites. So the rites and the rituals are said to come from the demons that they're communicating with in the spiritual realm. So they'll talk about Cadmus, and they'll talk about various things in that section of the video. Okay, so there's a lot of kind of insignificant facts in this part. I'm not a big fan of this part, but some of this stuff is important. For example, when Demeter, okay, in some versions Semele and Laoson, in some versions it's Demeter and Laoson, becomes enamored with Laoson. He's presented with the fruit of the corn. Hermes gave a lyre, Athena the renowned necklace and a robe and a flute, and Electra the sacred rites of the great mother of the gods. That's why I brought up this part for the rites. So the rites and the rituals are said to come from the demons that they're communicating with in the spiritual realm. So they'll talk about Cadmus, and they'll talk about various things in that section of the video. Well, toward the end, it talks about how in celebrating various rites of Dionysus' mother, be it Demeter, be it Semele, okay, the followers were said to act like men possessed by Dionysus. And I'd imagine that includes the females as well, because there's a lot of gender neutrality in the Greco-Roman mythology. So this part, I mean, I already went through it partially in the last video. So I just gave you some of the key parts here. If you want to see the video, I urge you to see the whole video yourself. I give you kind of key information from the video. And up to this point in the series, I've given you damn near all the information from the video. But I'm going to change tactics here, and I'm just going to go for the key information that is stuff that clearly connects in a certain way, that is vital jigsaw puzzle stuff if you're interested in piecing it together on a high level. But the basic idea remains the same, okay? The whites, Jews, and LGBT people, and the Middle Eastern people, the Indians, the rest of the world, basically they don't understand the story very well because it's not quite their story, right? It is, it's like if Pee Wee Herman ran onto the floor in an all-star game, an all-star basketball game, and started insisting on being seen as the center of it. He doesn't really know what it's like to be, a basketball player, but it's worse than that. It's like he did that without even knowing what basketball is. So he knows it has something to do with a ball, but he doesn't quite know what's going on. And so it is with African martial arts, right? Even though people understand hand-to-hand combat to a certain degree, they don't really understand divine hand-to-hand combat. And so when you look at the wordplay of Odin and how it connects to all of Europe and Asia and so on and so forth, you see that they don't really know what they're talking about. And I'm not saying to offend anybody or to try to, stick up my nose at them. I don't believe in being cocky. These are the facts here. When you look at this thing, it is impossible to understand the Greco-Roman mythology and mysteries without understanding that they didn't know what they're talking about and that they're basing it on the true form of Horus, which is the top martial arts, the son of God. Just like when I interpret the Bible, you have to use righteousness and justice as the measuring line and plume line. So what is going on here? We have to do the idea of justice. They're trying to transfer, they're going through the motions, rather, of trying to transfer divine authority from the true form of Horus, okay, which can't be done, mind you, to the followers of Set. And the followers of Set take on new form. I mean, even in popular culture, In popular culture explanation, Zeus is Set's Greek equivalent. Okay, and so is Baal in the Bible. So what they're doing is they put a kind of fairy Dionysian image on Jesus, and they get people to worship in the spirit of Dionysus, this kind of fairy, shallow, Western kind of spirit, propaganda, what have you. And they're trying to get people to follow them as if they're following the Royal African Falcon top martial artist. Okay, and if you think about it, there's so many points of reference. I mean, compare Achilles in popular culture to Shaka Zulu from the BBC series, right? You know, everyone knows, even Hollywood knows, that Shaka Zulu is much deeper than Achilles, right? They're kind of shallow Greek guys, like, hi guys, we're shallow Greek guys. And there's these deep, profound Africans that go far beyond what the Lion King seems to be superimposed on, so to speak. And so God is deep, his son is deep, he's spiritual, he's righteous, he's not artificial, superficial, shallow, but he's deep and righteous and potent. Righteous intensity. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun shining ever brighter to the full light of day, more intensely deep and righteous, not shallow. So it's definitively proven, okay, that Dionysus is superimposed on the Dionysian rites are superimposed on the betrayal of Horus by humanity. And they'll try to make this video sound corny and hard to listen to. You know, they're on some bitch ass shit. Just think of like a racist gay guy at a circus throwing a fit, making it hard for people. It's kind of like the Riddler, but more sadistic. The Riddler mixed with the Marquis de Sade. The Joker mixed with the Marquis de Sade. Penguin mixed with, Jigsaw. Okay, these are very evil and diabolical people. And the rites are about kidnapping people, raping people, killing people on a large scale all over the world. Vikings aren't the only ones who did it. For whatever reason, they tend to kind of chop it up to the Vikings and downplay the Romans. The Romans were bloodthirsty, murderous people. So were the Greeks. Alexander the Great went around raping and killing people, forcing his ways on them. Very bad person, no higher cause, very evil person. People call him Alexander the Greek instead of Alexander the Great because he wasn't great. He just killed a lot of people and insisted that people see him that way.